My name is Bill Bean, and I have a small consulting business called Green Planning and Coaching, which I started in 2006. I do strategic planning on both businesses and careers. Usually people have a whole Rubik's Cube of ideas in their head, and they really don't know how to solve that cube quickly. So that's what I do. I help them find a good direction so that any time they spend or any money that they spend can take them in a direct line between where they are today and where they want to go.
Great. And how did you get into that line of business?
Well, I've been doing strategic planning for over 30 years. My first job out of grad school was at International Paper Company, which is a Fortune 500 company in Manhattan. And they were building a strategic plan to get into the wood products business. And it was quite a story. We put a plan together, took a whole year. We went to the board, got it approved, and the next day it was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. So I got hooked on planning. And ever since that time, throughout my career, whenever there was a major crisis or a major opportunity, they would send me in and I'd help people put a frame around any type of a project to really be able to nail it down, have metrics, and be able to track it and all that. So it's been a lot of fun learning about other people's opportunities.
Absolutely. And then from that planning perspective, how did that link into permaculture work that you are now involved with?
I started to get into green and sustainability. So I was in the building materials industry, and that totally collapsed. And then I went and did a plan for somebody who had a green event center in Venice, Florida. And it was awesome. And they were having fun and making money, and I wanted to be that. So I went and got my lead AP as a credential, and I started teaching a course at University of Massachusetts in Amherst called How to Build a Quick, Convincing Business Plan for Your Green Initiative. And that kind of started it off, got me into the green space, and now most of what I do is either consulting, planning, teaching, coaching, or speaking around green and sustainability. And permaculture, Ryan Harb was at the University of Massachusetts, and he was in the second year of classes that I taught, and he had that university project that for permaculture that won national acclaim out of 1,400 entries, and he and his team got the award from President Obama. And ever since that, I've just seen how much this whole sector has changed in the last 4 or 5 years, and I believe it's really getting to a tipping point. And if there's anything that I can do to help make that happen faster or better, that's what I'd like to do, and that's why I'm here, quite frankly.
Great. So you mentioned opportunities. Do you want to expand on any opportunities that you've seen? Specific examples.
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities around businesses growing in the green and sustainability space. Yes, tell you a little bit about some of the opportunities. Well, Western Connecticut University is a good example. There's a woman there who is actually a professor in Native American Studies, and she's involved with the Jane Goodall Center, which is around, sustainability. And she had this great idea for a permaculture garden at Western Connecticut University. But she wasn't, her bag isn't really to go and deal with the administration and the bureaucracy and all that. So she called Ryan and I down, and we spent a day with her and did a little work afterwards, put a really concise, compelling business plan together, and the whole thing got approved by the university administration within 30 days. So, I mean, that's the type of an opportunity where people in this whole permaculture movement have great ideas, but translating it into a language that the decision makers can really relate to and understand that it's going to help them achieve their mission. Mm-hmm. That's the real key. And most of the people are very passionate about permaculture, but it's a different skill set, and they don't quite know how to do that.
For the person starting up,
yeah,
what are the top 3 mistakes, or top mistakes, I would say, that they make when they get started up, if they're going to start a new enterprise, and how is it that you go about helping them to create those?
Yeah, that's a great
plans?
question. Okay, so you asked, what are the issues with new people that are trying to do that, and how do I help them? They don't really know how to be clear about their vision and their mission, to say this is exactly where I want to go, and here are the criteria by which success can be measured. So thinking in the beginning about what the end is going to look like, and being able to say this is what we're going to do by when, because that's what decision makers need to know in order to be able to give them the funding and be able to help them. Another one is they think that they can do it all themselves. They don't realize that it's a separate skill set. So you need to, it's got multiple pieces to it. I mean, you need to be able to have a vision, which is some people have and some people don't. You need to be able to think in a strategic skill set of a plan of how to achieve the vision, even if it wasn't your vision. And you need to have a tactical skill set. And even if it wasn't your vision or you didn't build the plan, somebody's got to get up tomorrow morning and do something to help achieve it. And they don't realize that it's quite that complicated. And then usually people are involved with their business and their family and all these kinds of things, and they think that it is important, but it's not urgent. So everything else comes up once they get the plan done. And you have to figure out really how to make it work so that you can actually do it. And making your plan reasonable enough so that you're willing to do it. There's actually a word, velleity, and it means wanting something but not wanting it bad enough to actually do what it takes to get it. And I think it's interesting we have that word, but you need to build a plan that you can actually do and you're prepared to do. And a lot of people get more grandiose than that and don't realize how many other things they've got to do that get in the way.
So you've seen these projects in universities.
Yeah.
How applicable do you think these types of ideas are in municipalities and governments and corporations? Do you see crossover there?
Sure. Yeah, you asked that it seems to work in universities. Will it work in other sectors and other venues and other industries? Actually, my background is from the business side. So I've seen it work in business, and I know that if you tell the story in the right way and you set up the beginning of it really talking about what the issues are and how your solution fits ideally to solve those problems, it works anywhere. I mean, in some places it's valuable to me to be familiar with the industry because I can give them insight on the industry. In others, it's better for me not to be familiar with it because I ask them questions that they're not used to getting, and it helps them be able to define what they want to do and how they go about it. So it's, I mean, the planning mechanism itself will fit anything. It's, if you want to get from point A to point B, you need to clearly define both of those points.
And so how do you define or find point B? What are the let me say it a different way. How do you go about finding the problems? Or how do you recommend that people that you coach go about finding those problems?
Yeah, so the question was, how do people really find out what the problems are that they're trying to solve? And usually people have ideas of what they want to do. And part of it is finding the problems, part of it is articulating the problem. So you can do research, you need to understand what you're trying to do, and you've got to find something that makes enough sense so that it's unique and it's valuable. So if you're just going to try and do something in permaculture the same way everybody else does, don't bother, because they'll go to people with a longer history and marquee customers and testimonials. But looking and whether you go on the internet, you talk to people, finding something, a pain point that isn't currently being addressed, and figuring out how you can do that in a way that's a little bit different from somebody else, that's really the key.
Okay. What would you say that the main barriers are for people getting into business? You've talked about planning and, and having a clear vision. Are there any other kind of barriers that they have to overcome that are sometimes almost unsurmountable? And how do you help people with that?
Yeah, so the question was, are there other issues that can be problems and can make it actually unsurmountable for people to get into business, at the business of their choice? That's a two-pronged question, which is very important, and I'm glad you asked it, because it's equally as valuable, I think, to have somebody realize that they shouldn't be doing it as to realize that they should. Because you don't want to go bet the house on something and then realize that you can't actually pull it off, either because you're not doing anything that's different and valuable, or there's so many people out there doing it that there's no space for you. So, asking questions and have people look on websites. So you say, if you were an independent person who might want your services and you Googled it and you saw all the other people that are doing it, would you pick you or would you pick somebody else? And if the answer is I'd pick somebody else because I'm not doing anything that's unique enough or valuable enough, then they know that before they start in the business. And I think that's key.
Great. So you've been in this business for quite a while now. If you could go back, 30 years and start all over again, what would you have done differently?
I wouldn't change the first part of it at all. I mean, I had some great opportunities. Because I knew how to put a plan together and manage a team, you know, I just had some great experiences. I spent time in the Middle East after Desert Storm. I've just had a great time, met some good people. What I would change is I would have tried to recognize and get involved with green and sustainability and permaculture earlier, because it's grown so much in the last few years, and it's so exciting. You know, I wish I was 23 and could get a master's degree, combined master's degree in permaculture and you know, architectural landscaping or what. I mean, the people that I teach at the university level, they're coming out with degrees and understanding of what you can do to help change this world, make it a better place. There's some awesome young people coming along that are really going to make a huge change, including a lot of the 600 people at this conference.
Any last words of inspiration or tips or advice?
Last words of inspiration, I think, would be you know, take heed of what everybody here is saying today from Diego in the very opening about, you know, things that don't consider them impossibilities. You can figure out ways to do what you really want to do in life, but taking a disciplined approach to it is huge, and thinking it through in advance makes a big difference, because particularly if you're midlife career change, you want to make the next decision a good one. And although it may be okay to, you know, do something and forget about what you have to earn or anything like that, my definition of strategic planning is just thinking things through in advance using organized common sense. And if you do that, you'll make less mistakes, so you get it done faster, and you'll actually be successful of it. Or you will have decided that it wasn't the right thing and think of something else. So I think that's the biggest thing. The last thing is, if you're going to make a real change and you're going to start your own business, those are big decisions. And you want to think it through and make sure that it's successful the first time around, if at all possible.
I've certainly noticed the power of bringing in expertise. So
Yep.
One of the things, can you speak to the importance of being able to identify where you don't have strengths, and
Where I don't have strengths?
No. Where, like, when you're
Yeah.
somebody starting up,
Yeah.
it's just as important to figure out where you don't have strengths, so that you know
Oh, yeah.
when to call in help.
Yeah.
So can you speak to how important it is to be able to identify where you don't have specific skill sets,
Yeah.
and how to identify when to bring in a coach or a mentor?
So if the question was, when do you know that you can't do it yourself, you should bring in somebody else? And it's very interesting to me, of all the people that I coach, and I've coached 500 hours of coaching now, people who are honest about themselves, they find it very easy to be able to articulate what they're not good at and what they don't want. I don't think they necessarily know, whether a coach or a planner or somebody else, they don't necessarily know exactly where the consultant fits. But that's a good question.
I've
Well,
got
let
an
me think
example
about-
where we brought in someone to help us with marketing. And
Yeah.
Put us light years ahead.
Right.
And we didn't even know that we needed to know that.
That's part of the problem. I mean, quite frankly, as far as what people don't know, there's many people that I work with that don't really understand what I'm going to do for them until after it's done. And that makes it kind of tricky, because you could help people faster if they really understood what it is that you can do for them. But like permaculture and like sustainability, it's not clear, and it can be different for different people, and you almost have to get into the relationship to try it. So I guess the easiest way is to make it very easy and to make it inexpensive for them to start out. So I will talk to anybody for an hour at no charge, just to see what they're really trying to do, whether or not I can get along with them, whether or not they'll listen, and whether or not we could have some value out of the relationship. And I think that tends to make it a lot easier for people, because they're concerned to just jump in and they don't really know what you're going to do.
So I guess the last question would be, how important is it when you're looking for an expert to find a fit?
How important is it to find a fit with the expert?
And what I mean by that, just to kind of
Yeah.
expand on that, is that a little bit of advice about finding a coach as an example. So the coach
Sure.
shouldn't be pitching. The coach should be just as concerned about the fit as you are. That's kind of where I was going with that. So you do an
Yes.
hour for free,
Yeah.
but you're doing that just as much for your sake.
Oh yeah, because I don't want to. I tell them, if we can't get along, and if we don't see eye to eye, and if you don't listen, I don't tell them if you don't listen, because then they'll make believe they're listening. But you can tell pretty quickly whether or not you can have a productive, valuable dialogue. And if we can't, I don't want to be involved, and I will recommend that they not be involved. And the other thing is they need to clearly understand what they're getting. So I have in my agreement form, I'm not a psychologist. I don't do tax advice. I don't do, there's a lot of things that I don't do. And if you need that kind of help, you need to get it from a professional. But I think you need to talk to somebody and see whether or not you can establish a relationship and a good interactive dialogue. Because if you can't, nobody's going to be able to help anybody. And it's not good for my business if they're not happy, and it's not good for them unless I can provide some real value.